NFL, but I got something.
No, hey,
I told you I'd take a bullet for you. Don't be getting mad at me now. Rob Drummond, Syracuse running back alum, and Bruce Williams, Syracuse wide receiver and DB alum. Also, Bruce Williams, the offensive coordinator, wide receiver, and DB's coach of the #1 ranked Christian Brothers Academy in the state of New York. Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Yes, congratulations on that. Give it up to CBA. I know you're in enemy territory, right? Obviously got hired and had his introductory press conference. We're going to be talking about Syracuse football's future, and you got to meet Fran. Bruce got to meet Fran. I got to interview Fran on Monday. Got to ask him a few questions. So we can speak from
City regarding football team. I think that's good. You know, new ideas, fresh blood, and he has a sense that he wants to win, and he wants to win now, and he wants to bring Syracuse back to the glory days. So, I mean, that's always a good thing when you have somebody like that that has that mindset to want to win and want to get back to the days of Syracuse being on top. So,
Rob, what were your impressions of Fran?
I didn't know what to expect. You know, I retired in 2003, and when I came back, you know, just to be unfortunately frustrated coming back into the Greg Robinson era. You know, and from there, it's been frustrating for me as a Syracuse University football fan, and not only a Syracuse University football fan, a city of Syracuse fan. You know, because I love my city. You know, and the first impression I got was listening to Coach Brown talk about how much he loved Camden, you know, and how much he would do for a city. And when he came to Syracuse, you know, he fell in love with the city. The first thing I noticed about him saying also was that there were coaches that told him when he wanted the job at Syracuse, you know, why would you go there? Have you seen the city of Syracuse? And he actually said, it's like, you know what? I'm from Camden, New Jersey. When I got drafted by the Philadelphia Eagles, the first thing I did was I'm from Syracuse, New York. I went into the city of Philadelphia. I'd never been in a city that big before, and I saw the poverty in it. I went into Camden. I saw the city of Camden because I lived in Cherry Hill. Saw the poverty of it. And for a coach to come back and say things like that he wanted to just not make the university strong, but he wanted to make the city strong. The city strong. You know what he wanted to do for the city. Fran Brown's going to be a great coach at this university, not because he just wants to make the university better, because he wants to make the city better also, and I love him for that.
Yeah, you know, and you and I have talked about this a lot, is that, and Bruce, we've talked about it recently too, that there's a disconnect between the university and the city, that there's Syracuse, New York, and there's Syracuse University. And it feels kind of like the man in the high castle type of thing, right? They're up on the hill, they're by themselves, but eventually you realize if you're by yourself and you build a fortress, you're going to run out of food, you're going to run out of drink, you're going to run out of resources because you need the city to back you up. And Fran said, not only do I want to go into the city, I don't want any cameras with me. When I give back to the city, when I do community service, I want to do it out of the goodness of my heart. I don't want to do it because I'm being watched. I don't want to do it because I'm getting something from it as far as publicity. I want to help the community because Syracuse reminds me of Camden, New Jersey. And he said someone drove him around, and they said, are you sure you want to be in this city? And he said, I have to be in this city. Bruce, your thoughts on that?
My initial thoughts is that's great. You know, I'm somebody who wants to see your actions, not just hear your actions.
Lord.
For so long, we've missed that in the city of Syracuse, and it's more so you give the kids in our community hope when you're in the city, when you're in areas of Syracuse, that these kids from inner city, outside the city, here in Beeville, wherever, we all grow up wanting to play for the Hill. Like, that's a goal for any kid in this area, is to one day be able to strap on the orange helmet and play at home. So when you're in the community, it's more than just being seen. Like, what are our actions? Are we encouraging our youth sports? Are you there supporting the high schools, the kids, you know? And then for me, I want to see his actions. The words are nice, and I think he's going to, you know, stand on his word. But until I see it, right, I can be excited. I am excited for it, but you know, people can sell you a dream, and I just want to make sure he's going to be honest and stand on his word of being in the community. You know, me being a kid from the south side of Syracuse, growing up minutes from there, you know, when I grew up, like I said, when we were off camera here, seeing Kevin Johnson and those guys come to the Southwest Center to play with me in the summer and throw a football with me meant the world to me, you know, and I think for Fran Brown, as long as he can do that and stay to his word and get back into our youth system get back into the city of Syracuse school district and things of that nature to make a bigger impact on these youth kids and our generations to come because they need it.
And, and Rob, you and I were talking about this off the air today, that there's so many kids that don't have the exposure, don't have the love, don't have the money to get out there. You're never going to see a star system on wakeupcalldt.com. The reason why you're not going to see a star system is because it's flawed. A star system is based on kids that have talent, but can also have the means to get out there, to go to the right camps, to see the right people, and the consistency. A lot of these kids we're talking about in inner city, they can't go down the street with the money that they got, let alone to go to Michigan, to go to Florida, to go and do Saban's camp or whatever that may be. So there's really talented athletes that we don't see because nobody's giving them an opportunity. No one's going into those parts to find them. Nobody's putting themselves in those positions. And so, Rob, we spoke about the fact that the Hennigers, the Corcorans, there's all of these areas that we don't see people go into and really try. And unfortunately, I spoke with a mother over the last couple of years who took her son from Corcoran and moved down south to Georgia because she felt like there wasn't the right opportunity there for her child. I know other people have gone out of state as well. So to look at this situation, what can you say about knowing that there's talent in the inner city? It's not that it's not there, it's that nobody's willing to go find it.
We have so much talent in this city that it breaks my heart that Syracuse, for the past, as I said, I retired in 2003, and we've had very few athletes come out of the city that had the opportunity to go and play at Syracuse. Bruce was one of them, LeVar was one of them. I can go on about a few, but there's more. There's so much talent in the city, and me, myself, I love this city so much, I always put myself out there. I always tell any parent, if you need me, someone who's accomplished, someone who actually found his way to make it out, but it wasn't by myself. It takes a village. It just doesn't take one person. So I always put myself out. I always do community work. I always do the best and the most I possibly can do to see the city successful. And when I see these young kids, who are just so disadvantaged, but they're still willing to try and go out there and give their heart, I see myself. I see a young kid who I started playing football at West Tennessee. I played against Baldwinsville. I played against Liverpool. I played against CBA. I played against all these schools that I'm proud to say I played against them. I had more pride when I was in the NFL for the city of Syracuse than I did my university. My university was up there, but it was second. I was born and raised in Syracuse. I have relatives, like I said before, that are buried, in Oakwood Cemetery across the street. So, for this coach to come in and give this city an opportunity, it makes me smile inside. But it's like Bruce said, show me, because I'll give you every ounce of effort. I talk to the alumni on chat rooms all the time, like Pat Davis said earlier on your podcast. We have conversations all the time, and Dino Babers didn't look out for us, so why would we look out for him? I only go where I feel welcome. If I didn't feel welcome, I stay away. So as long as I feel welcome someplace, I'll give you 110% of me. I give these kids, I'll teach you. I spent 15 years playing pro sports. I can teach these kids what it takes to be successful. I was on the 1987 undefeated football team. I can tell you what Coach Mack did with us to be successful. Coach Mack was a community-oriented, coach. Not only did he do things for us on the university, he did it for us also, in the community. Bruce doesn't know this though, but my cousin coached him. I saw Bruce play Pop Warner football for Kirk Park. I saw Dorsey play. I saw my cousin E.J. Dowdell play, who went to Syracuse also. So I saw all these young kids coming up through the ranks playing football. Until this day, they always thank me for it because I spent the time as a university kid to come down and show support for my city. These kids on the Syracuse University, I doubt, unless asked, have never been to a football game. For youth football, it's a sad day when someone like myself doesn't even know or haven't even met one player on the Syracuse University football team. That's sad. That's real sad, and that's under Baber's watch. So to get a new fresh air, a breath of life into a system and allow a coach to be able to tell us he's going to do that, I'm going to hold him to that because I'm giving him time right now to settle down because a lot's happening right now with him being introduced, him on the recruiting trail, him getting adjusted. I'll let him get adjusted. I'll give him a week or two. But after that, I'm going to hold him to it. Like he said, he wants us around. He wants our presence around. So you're going to get it. And you're going to get the best of me. So get the best of my city, get the best of that university, and get the best of these kids that have the opportunity to be successful, our kids.
And not just to jump in, but also understanding the city of Syracuse has produced a lot of kids that went on to play at Syracuse, right?
Yeah.
When we look at that and you look at the long history dating back way before me, Drum, all of us, there's been guys from the city of Syracuse who stayed home to play. And that's how you get the community behind you up there, right? When you see a guy like Nick Robinson, a Beeville native that stayed home to play, or Greg Paulus who came back to play, and how he was able to electrify and get people in the seats because he's a hometown kid. I think we have to hope that Coach Fran Brown would understand that, right? You want the community support, but they'll support you as long as you support their kids, right? When they got talent and when we got talent here in your backyard, we hope that you take that in heed. If you're looking for us to, for the community to spend money and give you NIL, well, we want to see our kids here too, and I think that's something I hope he does do from that standpoint of, and when the talent's here and that talent is good enough to play here, right? And alumni are reaching out to you to say, hey, look, there's that kid here at this school or over here. You take that in consideration. So I'm hoping that he does that too, because that's what's going to help your drive to want the community support, right? We walk the streets every day of Syracuse and we see it, but you got to be able to show and reciprocate that back to us and let us know that you love us by making sure our kids stay home as well.
Tyler Rouse, Tyler Days, Dorsey Levens, Latavius Murray, Servassier Dennis, Stevie Scott, John Phillips, Mike Washington Jr. What do they all have in common? Syracuse didn't want them. And what did they do? Stevie Scott set a record at Indiana for the most yards for a true freshman running back ever. Servassier Dennis, multiple ACC linebacker of the week, played in 2 ACC championships, won an ACC championship, went to a New Year's Six Bowl, and is now in the NFL as an undrafted rookie that I knew he was going to make, because if you know Servassier, you know nothing's going to stop Servassier Dennis. Latavius Murray, what do they say, a running back in the NFL gets 2.5 years? He's been in for a decade. Latavius Murray. You look at Mike Hart as well. Got to add Mike Hart to that and what he did at Michigan and then going on to the Colts. So many people have come from this community. Tyler Rouse is coaching on the Carolina Panthers right now. The talent is here. So when people say, why do you have the alumni on your show, Dan? Why do you care about the kids in the community? They're not from Texas, Dan. They're not from Florida, Dan. They're not from California. It's because of the names that I mentioned. It's because of the people that I know. And if you're a 4-8 team struggling to get back onto it, you know who's never going to leave a 4-8 team? Their mom, their dad, their aunt, their uncle, their classmates. You got a 4-8 Syracuse team with guys from Beeville, West Jenny, CNS, CBA, Liverpool, Union Endicott, Maine Endwell. They're going to stick around because they're not going to walk out on their family. And what I think we forgot, and I'm not telling people get 100 players from Syracuse to make up this team, but you can't find 3. You can't find 5. Mackie McPherson was told that he was too short. He had 3,000-yard backs in 4 seasons. Two-time captain. Riley Dixon, still in the NFL. Justin Pugh out of Pennsylvania, straight off the couch. They needed an offensive lineman for the Giants, and where is he? So the Northeast has talent. New York has talent. Upstate has talent. Central New York has talent. So when people ask me, why do you defend the kids in the community, and why do you care so much about the alumni? Because I understand that if you don't know where you are, you don't know where you were, you don't know where you're going. And if I don't support the kids in my community, then I don't have any business living here. And I would suggest that to the people that don't support this community. If you don't want to be here, there's 49 other states. But I will always back this community.
I've proven I back this community for the simple fact that even when I retired in 2003, I asked myself, what do I want to do with my life? I was like, because I was done with football at that point. I loved Vancouver. It was a beautiful city. It was very relaxing mentally. I lived in Philadelphia. I love Philadelphia. The one thing I am is I'm prideful. And Philadelphia gave me the opportunity to do something that I dreamed of as a child. So I always support that city. And I lived across the bridge because I was more used to living in a suburb like Janesville. I was from the city, but Janesville was a suburb I was comfortable with. So I moved to Cherry Hill, New Jersey, because all the players lived out there. So I was in Camden all the time, but I saw the poverty, and now when I go into the city or any large city, I see just how disadvantaged those kids are. And yes, they can have dreams, of possibly one day playing pro sports. but I teach them how to, how to have that heart, how to have that drive, how to have that compassion, how to have that desire to want to go out there and not just do better for yourself, but just go out there and help others along the way. The one thing I do when I train kids, because I'm a personal trainer now, I always tell them, no matter what you do in life, no matter what you accomplish, no matter how much money you gain, how much fame, fortune, always be a good person. Always help the next person along, because one day we're all going to die. That's not skipping anyone. And when you stand before God, whether you believe, whether you're spiritual or religious or whatever, because I'm spiritual, He's going to ask you, or He's not going to ask you. He's going to already know your body of work. So you're either going into God's kingdom to see the rest of your family and the rest of your loved ones, or you're going to be in purgatory for a long time. So what I do is I try and go out there each and every single day, and it's not just Syracuse. I fly across the country and talk to schools also. I go to Canada and talk to schools also too. Because I played in Canada for 10 years. So I have a big inkling up there, and I'm going to tell Coach Brown when I talk to him. I have 4 Grey Cup championships with the Super Bowl of Canada. So I'm very, very well known. I'm probably better known in Canada than I am in Syracuse. So for him to get recruits that want to come out of Canada, because I've already been contacted by many of schools from the West Coast and British Vancouver, Columbia, where I played, to Toronto, where I played also. So I've had coaches already contacted me and tell me, I was like, you know what, I want to see that athlete first. I'm not just taking off anybody's word, I want to see it for myself and give it the eye test, and then fly out there, because as you know, whatever, I fly free, but regardless, just to see. I'm going to put, especially my city, these kids in the best position to be successful as I possibly can, as long as I have breath in my body.
Yeah, and I appreciate that, and I know that you do that. And for those that don't know, with the RAPS rating system, with everything that you do, that allows you to put an athlete of any sport up against people in their community, people around the country, and to train them beyond that, to get them ready, to show them this is where you're at, and then to build them a plan of where they can go. You never just want somebody to sit and be stagnant, even if they are really good and really talented. And then on the other side, so you're doing all of this to train, and then Bruce is on the field training these guys too, working with them, and you are spending a tireless amount of time going through statistics. You put up something yesterday, said, I'm going to be spending the next few days going through everybody's stats, putting up all this information, sharing this with you, to tell people about the kids that you have at Christian Brothers Academy, and you'll help them with their film. You'll help them with their message. You'll help them to get their statistics out there. You have been a proponent, without doubt, of wanting to make sure that if they don't get an opportunity, it's not for a lack of trying, it's not for a lack of information, and you've taken it upon yourself. And Bruce, to be honest with you, to me, I have not seen any other coach in the community spend as much time as you do in getting all the information out there. You do it like every single one of these kids is your biological child. So I'd love to get your thoughts.
Yeah, and not just at CBA. I'm mentoring a lot of young athletes from the area. And any kid that wants my advice on recruiting and what they should do, families, I give them my advice. It's not a secret to how to do it. Got to cast a wide net and see if you can get these things done. But I'm constantly talking to kids from all over the place when it comes to recruiting. But at CBA, it's about putting it down and putting in the work. We've done that over the last couple of years of really developing our kids from a physical and in-game kind of stuff. And our head coach, Casey Brown, does a good job leading us there. But for me, it's more, I think today's day and age, and I think Rob would agree, it's more about being able to market yourself now, right? The first thing you got to do is be able to pass the eye test when it comes to college coaches. I feel like the landscape of college football has changed, where it's not as much about developing the kid anymore. It's about winning, right? So for a lot of these high school kids, you got to be able to go in and be able to compete right away. You can't sit for 2 years and grow. You got to be able to step in and say, hey, I'm looking to get into the top 2 rotation. So it's just me with my experience of going down to the DMV area, down to Florida, seeing what that's like and bringing that back and trying to implement some of those things here at CBA, but also now educating the kids around here that's not at CBA. Like, that's a big thing. Like, they're going to come up and they're going to grab you by the shoulders and see if there's muscles there, and they're going to shake your hand, see how hard you squeeze during your handshake, and they're going to make their assessments, right? And I always preach to kids, first impressions, everything. It's the only time you actually can get somebody to believe who you are. From there, the outside world determines who you are as a person, right? That's what your character is. It's not determined by what you feel. It's about how other people feel about you, right? So if people come up and say, hey, Bruce Williams is a bad guy, and it goes down the line to 12 different people, well, my MO is I'm a bad guy, right? The community just determined that about me. So understanding first impressions with our kids and how you go up and shake a hand with a coach and how you physically got to be ready to shake a hand and understand they're looking at you to see if you can compete right away. So I try to educate our kids in that sense of, you know, making sure you're in the weight room, making sure you're watching film, making sure you're going outside of Syracuse to go to camps. That's another big thing I'm an advocate of is, you know, go camp in other areas. Go to Jersey, go to Ohio, go to down south, go outside of that 5-hour radius to really see where your skill set tests, right? You know, the Torrance kid, Sire Torrance, he was at Notre Dame, he was at LSU, you know, he went down and put his talent to the test against other places that are considered hotbeds, and he brought that knowledge back to us and the kids and understand, hey, this is what it looks like out there. So we do a lot of that as well with our kids is, hey, go out and camp. You're not camping for the offer, you're camping for the experience. You're camping to test yourself where you are compared to everyone else. You know, Dante Bashadi went down to University of Miami and did really well at the University of Miami. You know, he's a 6'5", 195-pound receiver for us, junior. Ran 4.6 this past summer at Syracuse. So being able to go down there and compete with the hotbed of, you know, South Florida, he did very well. So those are things that we try to do. I think a lot of us are fortunate. And for me personally, like Rob, I do a lot of training of our youth sports. I have parents paying me in coins. Just think about that. I have parents paying me in pennies and nickels. You know, a lot of these kids from the inner city like I wasn't privileged to have money. I didn't have it growing up. So when I train kids, I train them out of love of my heart because I was once one of those kids. If I had to pay people back in my days when I was a young and growing up, I wouldn't be where I am. I had coaches volunteering their time with me to keep kids like me off the streets of Syracuse, and I try to do that back now, giving back to the youth, where I'm like, hey, look, I'm not charging a lot. You know, I'm charging a couple of dollars and that sort of stuff, but I'm more so for the kids, and I think that's needed in our area.
Hey, you know, and we got some messages coming in. It's going to be great having alumni back involved. As we've talked about often, Dan, the guys want to help. And then we got hometown kid, number 59. Coach Williams had a few players right now. And Dan, you defend because you care. So thank you for the messages that have come in so far. We all have something in common. We got educated here and all had the opportunity to leave. Went and saw different things about the world, right? And what do? We all chose to come home. You chose to come home, I chose to come home. People say, why? Personally, in my life, they say, why did you come back from Florida? So nice down there, you're working for Disney, you got ESPN affiliate, why would you come back home? I said, and I'll tell you why I came back home, because I know that you guys can live with me in this world because you care. I came back home because my grandmothers were here. I came back home because my parents are here. And if I didn't come back home for those last couple years, my grandmother, I would have never seen my grandmothers. I would have never gotten to have any time with them. They would have passed away, and I wouldn't have had all those precious moments. I lived with my mom's mom, my G-mama. I moved in with her to take care of her. Last 2 years of her life, best job I've ever had my whole life. Probably the best job I'm ever going to have, outside of getting to raise my own child, is being able to be there and help the woman that raised me. Coming home and making almost nothing to be on a radio station. They paid us $8 an hour, put me on the show 4 hours a week, gave me a $30 check every couple weeks. Then I had to raise my money, raise 30 grand. They took all of it except for 10%. They gave me a $3,100 check at the end of the year, not the end of the month. Could have gotten food stamps. And people said, why did you do it? When I left, you talk about pennies, Bruce. When I left the radio station I was at for better opportunity, greener pastures, when I left that, I had 27 cents in my pocket and $103 in my bank account. That was it. Living with my grandmother, no comma in my bank account. And I started my company here. Why? because starting my company and putting my name on the door, there's no better place to put your name on the door, in my opinion, than where you come from. We all had the chance to leave. We all took opportunities, and we all came back home because home is where our heart is, and we love this place. We love Central and Upstate New York. 100% of this dais sitting here today chose to come back to Syracuse. We didn't have to come back, but we chose to.
For me, personally, as a freshman, the first freshman that started, actually the second freshman that started his first game at the time at Syracuse University, I remember just going down to Starkville, Mississippi. I had never been out of Syracuse for longer than, 3, 4, 5 days in my life, until I actually went down to, well, I'd never been out of Syracuse really, farther than 5 hours outside the city, Going down to Starkville, just playing that game, I came back and I doubted myself. I didn't think I had the ability to play Division I college football. You know what? I wasn't a 5-star or a 4-star or a 3-star athlete. They didn't have that back then. I was just a hard-nosed kid who went out there and tried his hardest to do the best he possibly could. I was a hard worker. I was athletic. But, I came back after that practice, and I felt so defeated. We ended up getting beat by Mississippi State. I think it was like 30-3. That's the exact score. And I remember coming back in that first practice. I look up in the stands at that first practice, feeling defeated, and there were at least about 30 of my family members and close friends just telling me, like my grandma called me Bobby. She was like, Bobby, you keep your head up, you keep working, you never let anybody defeat you, or you never let anything get you down. You go out there and work hard. And from that moment, to be able to turn around and look up in the stands and see people that actually supported me, see people that believed in me, to see people that weren't going to let me fail, meant the world to me. And then, as I told you on the last show, my final game here in Syracuse that I ever played a game of football, as they walked the seniors out, they called my name, and the dome was packed. I mean, the crowd erupted, and they stood there for about 5 minutes clapping for me. I just broke down in tears because all that effort, all that hard work, all that dedication, all on the hill in those practice days, those days I didn't feel I belonged, they made me feel like I was somebody and I belonged. So from that day forward, I was always going to fight for what I believed in, fight for my city, fight for kids like myself who nobody gave a chance to, but went out there and believed themselves. Even when they brought Michael Owens in and moved me to wide receiver, the university still didn't believe in me. And I still had to go out there and fight for it. So I've always been a fighter my entire life. My city believed in me, the university didn't, but I proved them wrong. So I want all these kids to know, and I'm going to let them understand that if you go out there and you fight and you believe in yourself and you work hard, you got a city that backs you. So I will always back this city because they back me.
I respect that, and I love that, and you have that too. And you guys both did that. JD, CBA, on to Syracuse. Why are you here, Bruce? Because like I just said, we all had a choice to go and chase our dreams and go elsewhere. But all of our roads led us right back home.
And just like your story and like Rob's family, right? Like you grow up with your family, you grow up with your loved ones, you grow up with your community that you wouldn't be where you are today if it wasn't for the community, right? Rob, your name wouldn't have been as big as it was without the community. And same thing for me at CBA. It was the community who makes you who you are, right? Like when we played back in '04, we won that state championship against New Rochelle. I mean, at high school game, we had 9,000 people packed the dome to come see us play New Rochelle.
I was there.
And for me, it's the community, it's my family, I have kids of myself, and I want them to understand where Dad comes from, and see their grandmother. And for me, it was just bringing my kids home to make sure they can grow up with their cousins and grow up with family. And then I was fortunate that our head coach, Casey Brown, asked me to come back on and coach at CBA. And then that's, again, without CBA, I wouldn't be who I am today, right? That Bruce Williams people know now is because of CBA, right? I was a little dirty kid from the south side of Syracuse before I walked in the door at CBA. Like, that's who I was, right? I didn't have my parents around as much as other kids because my parents were living their lives. I had 3 older brothers doing things that they didn't want me to be involved in, and CBA gave me an opportunity, a chance to better my life. And I'll never forget Brother Kevin was the one that said, hey, and I tell people this, 8th grade, My 8th grade year at Cleary Middle School, I missed 63 days of school. And it was just a matter because I was doing what everybody around me was doing, right? I was caught up in that where my friends didn't go to school, I didn't go to school. My brothers ain't go, I didn't go. Nobody can tell me to do something when you're not doing it. CBA gave me an opportunity, and it was under one condition: I can't miss school. By the time I graduated CBA, I was one of only 2 people to never miss a day of school in 4 years. The only other person was the valedictorian of CBA. So I'm in that realm with that, but that's why I come back and I give and I go so hard for my community, because I want them to understand, yes, I was a kid from the South Side. Yes, I beat the odds, right? I got an opportunity, and then I executed that opportunity to get myself where I am today. And I always tell people, my first 2 checks after college, when I got a big boy job, I moved my mom out of my neighborhood, right? Like, I'm a mama's boy. I'm the youngest my mom had.
Yeah, I know about that.
That was my goal, right? And now I'm teaching my kids how hard work pays off, how my 8-year-old has not missed a day of school in 3 years. Just think about it. She's 8 and she's in the 3rd grade, 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. She hasn't missed a day of school because she values her education. And for me, that's why I come back and I do what I do in my community to teach my kids the same things, that hard work pays off. But it ultimately is the community who made me who I am, and I owe it to my community, like Rob says, to give back. Give that knowledge back to the youth so they understand what it takes. And that's why I go so hard and representing not just CBA, but my community of Syracuse. And I like Rob, I'm always going to do that for Syracuse.
The funny thing is, though, I go to basketball games, I go to soccer games, I try and go to every event, youth football games. And during the football season, I'd be at the youth football games tired from coaching myself, as I coached at Henniger this year. I helped out. I'd be absolutely exhausted, but still at this game, I'd look over and I see Bruce at the exact same game, and we just start laughing because that's the dedication that we have. But it's not just one team. We go. I've been to the Renegades. I've been to QC United. I've been to the Eastwood Grizzlies now. So Bruce at the Eastwood Grizzly game. So we practice what we preach. And these parents are so thankful. These kids are so thankful. The coach called me and, Robert, can you come talk to the kids before they take off for the national championship? I was like, sure. I was up there the next day. I'm exhausted, but I'll never be exhausted when I have the energy in my body to be as someone who these kids look up to let them know, in order for you to be great, you got to be greater. With greatness comes great responsibility, and they need to understand that, because I'm not going to be here. I won't say much longer, but I'm 56 this year. And nobody lives forever. So at some point they have to carry the torch, and they have to lead on. And I want them to feel they need to do the same thing. And if they should happen to get that opportunity to be able to go out there and do things, and you don't have to be a professional football player to be successful. You can go out there, you can be a doctor, you can be a lawyer, you can be a school teacher, you can be a janitor. As long as you have a positive influence on these kids coming up, especially in this generation, because this generation has a lot of pitfalls ahead of them. Social media and technology, they have a lot to work with. But you know what? As long as you're a positive influence, as long as you're a positive role model, as long as you have goodness in your heart, you'll be all right.
Well, that's the thing. We live in a society where fake has kind of taken over reality. And you see somebody on Instagram, and I hadn't experienced this for a long time, but then I experienced it one day. I saw somebody on Instagram, and I knew their life. And then I saw him on Instagram, and I went, on Instagram, you got $1 million more. On Instagram, you go in all these mansions. On Instagram, you got a mink coat. Like, where was the coat check where you came and took that and put it on for 5 minutes before the lady came back? But you see that. We live in a society now where you don't have to work toward it. You just got to look like you did. And you're never going to be successful doing that, because at some point in your life, you're going to have to work for it. You're going to have to try for it. You're going to have to physically do it. And so I thought to myself, I said, man, in a fake world, and the media is one of the fakest worlds I've ever been in, being in the media, I said to myself, I believe in God. That gets me in trouble. I tell the truth. That gets me in trouble. People steal my stories. I either get no credit, I get some credit. Well, no. I either get no credit, if the story gets buried, they stole it, that's it. It's either no credit or stolen. And I said to myself, how am I supposed to work so hard and get nothing from it? My dad said something to me a long time ago. He said, "Why are you mad?" When I had a teacher in college. I said, "My teacher never supported the show that I created. The first thing I did, my first baby, MU courtside, NCAA Division III men's and women's basketball games. He never supported it. When I left, he put his name on everything, took my name off of it. Everybody else put their name on it. When I was in a hospital bed senior year, he tried to get my co-host to take me out of the show while I was at the hospital, while I was at home. And I thought to myself, Dad, this hurts. I built this thing. This is my kid." My dad said, "God knows what you did. Who cares if this guy knows what you did? He knows what you did, but who cares if he tells somebody what you did? Who cares if anybody ever gives you credit for what you did? Because if you are honest and you are real and you are genuine and you have faith and you believe in God, you will always be around good people. They will find you. Good opportunities will find you. You realize that people that believe in God and work their butt off, why do we all look so lucky? We're not lucky. We're blessed. Because good people, they say we finish last. Now, the reality of it all is everybody has hardships, but you don't feel bad when a bad person has a hardship because you feel like they deserve it. But when a good person has a hardship, it hurts because you say that they don't. But the reality of life is there are so many things going on in this world, and the way that we change it, the way that we make it better, the way that we affect it is not looking for credit. It's not looking for someone to pat you on the back. It's not looking for somebody to do the right thing. You do the right thing. You be the difference. You be the change you want to see, like Gandhi said, because you might never get credit. Like, didn't wear number 44, but of guys that had at least 300 carries at Syracuse, yards per carry, number 2 to Ernie Davis. This man, everything you've done for CBA, the records you still hold today. You're coaching, think about it. You're coaching right now and raising your own kids, and your records are still standing. Okay? Kid that was told I was never going to make it. I went to the internet. I started a podcast when they said that it was stupid and it was dumb and nobody was doing it. It was nerdy. Think about this whole table is a bunch of nobodies that made ourselves into somebody. And that's from the grace of God. That's from hard work. That's dedication. That's being surrounded by good people. This is the bluest collar you're going to find. And I respect you guys because I look to you guys when I let this world get me down. I let this world get into me, bother me, because I want to get the credit for my hard work. Not because I want a pat on the back, but I don't want somebody to steal it. But at the end of my life, God's going to say to me, you did all this stuff. You know what God's going to say to the people that stole it? What did you do?
That's what I told you earlier. When we all die and they stand before him, he's going to ask them, here's your body of work. Here's what you did. I mean, you can't come into my kingdom because you didn't have the pure heart to go out there and think of somebody besides yourself. And that's what I try to accomplish every day. And it's like you said, I mean, I'll let Bruce tell his own story, but as I watch the Syracuse, from his freshman year to his sophomore year to his junior year to his senior year, it reminds me so much of me. From the simple fact that I came into Syracuse not knowing what to expect, and I ended up playing as a freshman and doing well and realizing, hey, you're pretty good. To having him switch my position because a senior was coming back who they thought was more talented than me, but you're never going to outwork me. So I know he was going to be better than me until all of a sudden, once that senior started failing, to put me back into the starting lineup as a running back, and they ended up leading the team. We won the last 4 games, and I led the team in rushing that year, only playing in 4 or 5 games. Then to the next year, the All-American Michael Owens coming in, and without even having a chance to compete against me, then basically almost wanting to hand him the spot, made me work even harder to where now he couldn't unseat me. So it had to get to the point where they had to made him split time with me. I didn't mind him splitting time with me because it made our team better. But if they had combined my last until Sean Tucker broke it, if they combined my last 2 years at Syracuse where I split time, I would have been the leading rusher for one season in the history of Syracuse. To the point where there's Ernie Davis, there's Jim Brown, and there's me in yards per carry. A running back is measured by yards per carry. That's determination. When someone tells me I can't do something, it makes me work that much harder. That much harder. To the fact where in 1988, when my father was murdered and I still was playing, people don't understand the rage I had inside and how mad I was. A 16-year-old kid shot and murdered my father for no reason at all. I was so mad that I said, I'll never do anything else for the city. And my mother sat me down, and she was like, Robert, baby, let me tell you something. You cannot let the actions of one person determine how it is you're going to treat the rest of this world. And I sat there and thought about it for a minute, and I was like, Ma, you're absolutely right. I am not going to let my father's murder from a young kid define me. I'm going to take care of all these kids now. I'm going to do everything in my heart, everything in my power to see these young kids, these young gentlemen and women in this city successful. And for the rest of my life, that's what I intend to do. No one will ever outwork me. That's my favorite motto. That's my mantra. That's what I want to put on my tombstone. He was never outworked by anybody. And that's what I teach these kids. If you want to be successful, and success, I measure by not the results. I measure success by the effort you put in to get where you want to do, because others are looking at you. I know each and every single day these kids, even some of these parents, people out here, they may not say it, but they feel the passion I have. Because there's no one on this planet that will outwork me. I refuse to let that happen, because I want these kids to understand that here's a former professional football player. I can take it easy. I can sit back, relax, and not do anything. But I refuse, because that's failing these kids. And I refuse to fail this generation.
And that, going to you, Bruce, and thank you, Rob, for that, and I appreciate that. Teaching kids to work, right? You're dealing with that all the time. Rob's dealing with that. Teaching kids to work. And people say to me now, I work with a bunch of these businesses, and they say, I hired these kids right out of college. I'm hiring these teenagers in high school, this and that. How come I trained them for 2 weeks and they didn't show up for the first day? How come when they're late, they don't care? How come when I tell them how to make a pizza, they go, nah, I'm going to do it a different way? And you're like, nah, this is how we did it for 23 years. And they're like, nah, I'm going to do it a different way. I said, you want to know that generation? The generation of, I don't care. It doesn't matter to me. And not everybody's like that, and I'm not going to group everybody together. I'm going to say something that was taught, because not everybody believes in this, and I met more kids than I haven't that don't believe in this, but I want to put this out here. There's that reality of the generation of everybody got a trophy. And that was not your generation. That was not my generation, because I know what it was like to lose. I got one MVP playing basketball my whole life. I got one MVP. I got one championship. Though that championship trophy is in my studio. All the participation stuff, all of the thanks for being here, I don't know where half of it is. It's in some box somewhere, because I appreciate that my name's on it. I'm not going to throw it out of the respect to the team that gave it to me, but it's not going in my studio. Because when I got MVP, you know what I said to myself? I said, I worked my butt off to get MVP. It was the last year of the basketball tournament we had, 14, 15 years old. You can't play after that. You can coach. My buddy always got it. He was always MVP. He was number one. And we would practice against each other. He was a head taller than me. And I had to beat him, and I had to beat him. And you know what? I learned. I had to learn his mannerisms. Because he's taller than me, you know what I did? I didn't sit there and go, well, he's taller. What am I going to do? I sat here and I said, God made me this tall, so I need to know his mannerisms. So I figured him out. I knew when he was going to jump, so I jumped first. I blocked the shot like I was a foot taller than him, because I got to know him. And I worked my butt off. And when I got that MVP, I sat there that day and I said to myself, this is not an MVP for the last 5 days, for the last week. This is an MVP that started when I was 7 years old and played organized basketball. That's when that started. So we valued winning something because it meant something. You can't all be a CEO. There's one. You can't be the president. There's one. I can't walk into a building right now and say, hey, I'm the head of Disney because I think I am, so give me the job. But we live in a society where kids were taught that you don't have to try. You'll get a trophy. You'll get first place. We're just happy you're here. We're not going to do any stats because we don't want anybody to be offended. Bruce, enlighten us, because that generation that everybody got a trophy is the same generation that doesn't show up for work.
Yeah, and I mean, it's a learned behavior, right? Like that's the key here is we learn behaviors, and that's how we move forward. And I think for a lot of it, like for the last 8 years, I've worn a wristband that says no excuses, earn it, and I wear it every day, right? And it's just a reminder to myself that nothing's going to be just given to me. Like I have to earn it, to the point where my 8-year-old daughter is like, Dad, why do you not take this off? And it's a simple reminder to myself from being somebody who come from a situation that wasn't always the best, right? But I do understand, even in that situation, the people around me put me in the best position for myself, right? Like there's things that I grew up with that I was fortunate not to have to go through because the people around me made sure I didn't have to go through it. So it was more so I had 3 older brothers who walked me to the park and said, you stay here, and I'm in the park from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. when they came back to get me. You know, hey, Bruce, we brought you lunch, stay here. And I had coaches in my life who say, hey, just keep working, kid, like keep doing that. So for me, it's a learned behavior, and that's what I'm trying to teach kids through training and things like that is you got to be willing to get up. And I remember last year we had a situation with training, and it was raining. And the kids were like, Coach, I can't make it because it's raining. And then my question to you, so when September comes and it rains, are you still going to play? Like, are you going to play that game? Well, yeah. So what's the difference between this and practicing for it, right? You just can't expect to go out there and catch 10 footballs in the rain without practicing in the rain. Like, these are things you have to learn to do because it gives you a different skill set, different part of your mindset that you have to tap into to conquer these elements. So for me, it's trying to educate our kids of hard work. I mean, I've had kids that I've been training where I'm like, hey, we're getting up at 6 a.m. on Saturday to hit the weight room. Coach, it's 6 a.m. Why do we have to get up that early? Because most of your peers aren't up at that time. If you want to be number one, think about what Kobe Bryant says, LeBron James, Michael Jordan. They're up outworking you. By the time you wake up and enter the gym, they've had 2 workouts already. Like, that's a thing. That's how you become a Hall of Famer. And for me, getting the records that I did in high school, that's what it was for me. I was privileged to have LeVar Laudell on the outside of me, who was the 17th ranked receiver in the country and the number 1 ranked quarterback in the country on my team. But it was, Bruce, why do you go so hard? I didn't have to compete with the people I played against. My challenge was being better than the 2 people on my team. If I knew I was better than Greg and LeVar, no one can deny it, you know, for myself. So that was just, and they motivated me and they pushed me to be the best player I was. And the fast forward in college, I went up to SU. Right, Syracuse was the only team that gave me an opportunity to play receiver. I'm like, hey, I just caught 103 passes in 1 season. You don't think I can do this? And they gave me a chance. By the time summer camp came across, I won the respect of my teammates because when we practiced in the summer, any and all footballs in the air were mine. And I had quarterbacks telling me, hey, you ain't got to die for that ball. That's all I know. That's my ball. Like, I got to get it. And then fast forward my senior year, I become captain of my team in 08. And here's the kicker. I didn't win not one section. I wasn't offensive MVP. I wasn't defensive MVP. I wasn't special teams. But no one had more votes across the board. I finished second in offense, defense, and special teams. And I didn't even play offense at the time. And they voted me second on the offensive tally because they know my leadership. So Coach Robinson named me overall captain of the team because he said, in all my years of coaching, I never had a kid get this many votes for all 3 categories ever. And that was a token of my hard work to know, hey, I come to work every day and I lead by example. So if you want to be last in line, I'm never last in line. I'm first. I'm going to show you how it's done. And that's what we're trying to do, Rob tries to do, you try to do, is show these youth, like, you have to be first. And today's day and age, it's about staying in your lane, man. I'm just going to stay in my lane. I can't tell them, nah, Coach, I don't do that. Well, now I'm trying to push the envelope with them to be like, hey, there's ways to teach. There's ways to say it. You going with that attitude of a negative, it ain't the best. But if I go to you and say, hey, Rob, you know, when you show up late, I just want you to know how I feel about it, right? When I feel like, hey, we can't be our best version without you here on time and you helping us, we need that. But it's not demeaning to Rob. It's not demeaning to the next person. So I'm understanding, I'm trying to educate these youth, educate the people around them that that's what you need to say. It's more encouraging than it is chastising somebody. I want you to know, understand how I feel, but understand your impact around us can make a difference. So that's how, kind of like I said, I live with these wristbands and it says no excuse, earn it. And that's the mantra I teach my kids right now is, and I tell my daughter, it's not about the 100 that you get. What matters to me is if you come to me and tell me you could have done better. And it's effort. You can control your effort. You can control these things that other people can't control you. That's what I look for in my kids is what's your effort level in the things you do. So for me, that's more so what it is in this generation, trying to get them to understand your effort is going to determine your character, right? We talked about it. That's your first impression. If I come to you and I tell you I'm slouched over in a chair and I'm not paying attention to you, I don't care.
Yeah.
right? And I don't want that. I want you to think, man, Bruce is engaged, Bruce is locked in, Bruce is and when you see me coach, you see it, right? You see me coach, I'm always locked in. The kids will say, coach, but you say it every time. I'm going to keep saying it until you understand that it's important. So what, you scored the touchdown? I knew you were going to do that. But did you run that route at the right depth? Did we consistently do these things to make us great? That's what we need to work on. And I think that's just my MO as a person. How I live my life is you got to go get it. If I'm blessed to wake up the next morning, I got to go get it. I got to go, and I want to lay down and know that I couldn't have done anything more that day. And that's the kind of way I live my life.
Well, you said it. It's effort. Now, the one of the things that you said that I can't stand that people say, and every time I see somebody say it, I'm like, they can't be in my circle. Is when somebody says, "Stay in your lane." You got to stay in your lane. I said, listen, when I drive in my car, if you're going too slow, I got to get in the other lane, right? I gotta. The road is my road, and when the road only leads so far, now I got to off-road. Now I got to drive through the grass. Now I got to go through the mountains. Stay in my lane, man. If I don't create my lane, I don't want it. And once I created that lane, I created that lane for somebody else to be able to drive through it. Now I got to go in another lane. Now I got to create another thing. I'm building my own highway. I'm not staying in your lane. And when you say stay in your lane, that's somebody else telling you where they determine you belong. And no one's going to determine where I belong outside of myself and Jesus Christ.
And that's the thing, too, is I oftentimes think of it as if somebody says, hey, this is best for you, that's just them putting their limitations about themselves onto you. And that's their way, and I always tell kids, when somebody say I can't do something, that's them telling me, hey, if I can't do it, you can't do it, right? And I don't live by that. When I broke the records in high school, I meant it. When people say, yeah, you're good, but you're not Marquise Walker. All right, I can't be Marquise Walker, but if I own every record, you can't deny me. You know what I'm saying? I'm going to go get that. So now you can't say I'm not in that conversation when I got the record. You know, and for me, that was the kind of things that I oftentimes see is when people tell you you can't do something or stay in your lane, they're just trying to put their limitations on you so you don't outwork them. Oh, no, stay in your lane. No, I'm going to go past this. I want to go past you, right? I want to go past what this is you think this is. And that's my mindset all the time, is because I try to be around like-minded people like you, like Rob, where it's going to push me. Like every time I see Rob, I try to have a conversation because there's something in the head of Rob's that I need to know, right? And even if it's the smallest little thing, I need to hear it because that might impact me tomorrow in the way I raise my kids or the way I interact with the kids that I do. And I go to Rob and I ask him I try to have a conversation, a genuine conversation about whatever it is, and I'm trying to figure out what the message I'm getting out of it and what he wants me to get out of it, and then I run with it. So for me, that's that. I can't stand it neither, but I try to educate them and fix it as well. So.
I mean, me personally, I just try every time with my discussions with kids. I mean, I just try and give them an outline of life, and in that outline of life, I just tell them it's like, you know what, you can either listen to me or you can't. There's a reason I'm successful. It doesn't have to be the same outline. I'm not telling you what to do, but it's like, at the end of the day, it's like, if you fail, don't you point no damn finger at nobody but yourself, because you chose not to put in the work. That's your choice. You have an outline now, but you have to work at it. Once you think you finish that outline, I can tell you what to do next. I can tell you what to do next. It's levels to it. You have to keep going. It's levels to it because it gets harder. High school was tough, then I went to college. College was tough, then I went to the NFL. That was even tougher. But I worked. And life is the same way. Sports is a lot like life. You know what? The harder you work, the more you get out of it. The more you'll be determined, the more successful you'll be. If you put it, you'll get out of it what you put into it. So don't you damn sure blame anybody if you fail in life because you chose not to put in that work. Always work hard. Do the best you can. You know what? I've learned more from failing than I ever had from succeeding. I've learned way more from failing than I ever had succeeding. Success is just a word, so is fail, but the one you work at is the one you're going to achieve.
Well, and the thing is that, to me, and you talk about, like that adversity, I don't consider anything that I've ever done a failure because I learned something from it. I consider it adversity. I never thought that I failed myself because if I did something that I believed in and I cared about it, it brought me somewhere. Somebody said that to me before. They're like, when you started your company, I agreed to work with you, and I knew if you failed at this, you would succeed at the next thing because I bought the person. I didn't buy just like the idea. And to me, adversity builds you. You can't be who you are without adversity. None of us would be sitting up here without adversity. You wouldn't be the person that you are, Rob. Bruce wouldn't be Bruce. I wouldn't be me. And when people talk about competition, right, people shy away from competition. NIL and transfer portal, you can run away from competition now if you want to. But here's the thing about competition. I'm competitive as hell, but not with anybody else. I want to kick my own ass from yesterday. When I wake up in the morning and I look in the mirror, I'm like, Dan Tortora, you're going to lose from yesterday. I don't care what anybody else is doing, because when you're driving your car and you're going into your own lanes and doing what you want to do, I'm not looking at that car going, well, what's he doing? I can't be doing this the whole time. I got to be driving like that. I'm going to look over and make sure that you need to get out of my way, or I got to go when I got to go. But I'm competing with me. And that's what I think that people, because they said to me before I would go for a job, and they're like, well, did you listen to the other guy going for the job? Did you hear his tape? I said, no. They said, why? I said, because I'm working too hard to make sure that my tape's right. They said, well, what, somebody said something about this, and somebody said something about that. What do you think? I don't have time to watch other people's stuff. I just got time to do me, because I'm trying to challenge myself to help other people. And when and this to go back to something I said before, when I want people to do the right thing, and I want people to give credit where credit is due, and I want people to be honest and not ask for something they're not willing to give, I can't focus on that anymore. Can't focus on the media. I can't focus on the other people, because the reality of it all is they're competing with me, and I'm competing with me. But guess what? I'm going to win every time if I'm fighting myself. And when I go to sleep at night, effort. If I go to sleep and I said to myself, at CBA, I wanted 100 on every single test. At Our Lady of Pompeii, every single test. Marywood University, every single test. Anything you gave me, I got a 3.93 in college in broadcasting. And part of it had to do with being out sick for one of the months at the end. And he's like, I can't give you an A. I'm going to give you an A- because you weren't here for everything. And he's like, it's not fair, even though it was out of my control. But I got a 3.93. Every time I tell people I got a 3.93, you know what I think about? Should have been a 4. When I got a 3.82 overall, I go, man, I remember the math class I took at 6 p.m. when it was hard to focus, and I felt like I couldn't learn it. And if I could go back, I'm like, I got a 3.82 because I got a B in that math class. So when you have that drive and that fire, I tell people this all the time. No matter how many companies I work with, how many interviews we do, I'm a creative person. I want to do the next thing. My dad will be like, you got to get some sleep. My mom's like, you don't want to get sick. And I think about that, but I also think about the fact that why am I up at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning? Because I live on creating opportunities for not just myself, other people. I love calling Rob up and going, bro, I got this awesome thing that we could do. Bruce, what do you think about that? This idea tonight was born out of the fact of, I respect you both tremendously. You both grew up here, played here, and you speak to everything that we care about. And then Fran talked about it, and then we were all in the room. When the interview ended, I wanted to say hi to Fran. But the first thing I did when the interview ended, I looked for you, and I looked for you. I knew where you were sitting because you came up and went this way. I knew that you went across me and were up there. I was not leaving the building until I came over to you guys and said, what did you think? Because I respect and value your opinions. So you're here tonight out of the goodness of your heart, but I asked you to be here tonight, and I didn't call a million people. I wanted you guys to be here tonight because we get it, and I respect you, and I'm happy that I'm with two people that understand that when you compete with yourself and you beat yourself, it's the greatest victory you can have.
My ideology of the whole situation is, I look at a brick wall for every situation I encounter. When the dust settles, I'll still be standing because I'm running through that brick wall. I want to watch the dust settle because the brick wall is just adversity, like you said, in life. And by fail, what I mean is fail is a sports term. The ultimate goal in sports is to win a championship, correct? That's the ultimate goal. If you don't win a championship, to me, as a collective group, you failed. You know, but Failing doesn't mean losing. It just means it's a valuable lesson on how to get better. The first time in the CFL, we got to the championship, we lost the game. You know what? I didn't get mad. I didn't get upset. All I did was go back to the drawing board and be like, what could I have done better to put us in a position to win that game? I ended up winning the next 4 and getting MVP at 2 of them. So I found a ways to motivate myself, you know, to go out there and find a way to win that championship. And not only did games were easy to me. You want to know why games were easy to me? Because I pushed myself so hard in practice that my teammates were like, yo, Drum, chill out, slow down. I was like, nah, because if I slow down, you're not going to get better. I know how elite of an athlete I am. I know how good I am. No, I know what I can do as an athlete. I was big, tall, strong, fast. I could catch. I was powerful. I could play any position on the field. So I'm going to make you work. Because if I make you work, it's going to make you better. You got to get better because I'm about championships. I'm not about that just being on the team to be on the team. Nah, that's not me. If you're on this team, that's great. But you're going to work. You're going to learn how to get better, not just in football. You're going to learn how to get better in life. Because once this game is over, you got to go out there in this world and get you a job. And jobs are harder than the game of football. For real, you know? So better learn this now at an early age and learn from somebody who's done it before, you know, and let's go. Let's go.
Thoughts?
Yeah, I just think, you know, same thing we're all talking about, and I think listening to Coach Fran Brown, he's kind of got that same mindset of he wants to win, right? He said it. You know, he comes from a pedigree of winning national championships and improving programs. So, you know, you get excited for that type of stuff, and what we talked about tonight on the adversity and doing your best and working your hardest and creating your own lane and not falling for it. But those are all life lessons that I think Fran's talking about all the way through our community, right? Like all the way through our youth sports and our high schools and things of that nature. And it just comes full circle for me in that way of knowing that I'm making an impact in my community when it comes to that stuff, and hopefully Coach Fran does the same thing.
And that's the thing is, you know, I sat in that room a couple weeks ago, and we were talking about John Wildhack saying Dino didn't get to 7-5, so I had to let him go. And I thought, ew, 7-5, what? And then I thought about 1-10, I thought about 5-7, I thought about all these other times that we didn't get there. And then I heard Fran Brown say, I want to win a championship. I want to be a national team. And I need all hands on deck to get that. If you strap up every day, if I say, hey, I want to do a really good Monday show, but it doesn't have to be that good on Tuesday, I just got to hit it on Monday. I really want to win this week against West Virginia, but if we don't beat Pitt, that's all right. You know what? If we just make it to the state playoffs, we don't have to win it. What does that sound like? If you fight for your limitations, you get to keep them. And Syracuse has fought to be limited, and they've gotten to keep it. Paul Pasqualoni was fired in 2004 for back-to-back 6-6 seasons. Now Syracuse parties at 6-6. Now you got a head coach going 6 and what? Georgia just went 12-1, won 29 straight games, and they said, piss on you. Go play in a different game. You're not in the college football playoff. You know what Georgia thinks of this Orange Bowl? They think this don't mean a dang thing. We're not playing for a national championship. And Kirby Smart in his head is already preparing for next year, trying to figure out what they need to do better. We can't fight for limitations. And we got a coach right now that for the first time in 20 plus years looked into the camera and said, I want to win a championship. And I love that, because why are we playing the game if we want to win sometimes?
Yeah, and it's more so of a winning mentality and proving people wrong, right? Even then, they get Florida State. I guarantee you Georgia's going to go out there and try to make a point to say, hey, you sure you wanted us out of that playoff? You know, and that's what it's going to be like. And for us, you know, at CBA, it was the same thing. Like, we don't just come to the dance just to be at the dance. You come to the dance to be the main attraction at the dance, right? So I just think in that instance, you know, Coach Fran Brown has that mindset, and he's gone out, and we've seen over the last few days, he's done what people couldn't do, the last few coaches couldn't do. He's going out and saying, hey, you 4 or 5 stars, look at me, I'm right here. come take a visit to us. You know, where you didn't have that with previous coaching staff that thought we can get a guy like this, right? When you don't have the mindset and you feel like, I don't even know if we can get a guy like this, you've already set yourself up not to succeed in that instance. And I think Coach Fran Brown is making a immediate impact in that way, is because he's showing people, I can go out and I can sit in any house and I can talk to any kid, but I'm going to show you these 4 or 5 stars are going to come to campus here. And I think that's a good thing for us at Syracuse. And like I said, I just hope we don't lose sight of understanding what Syracuse has to offer and New York State has to offer when it comes to our talent, because some of our greatest athletes that play at Syracuse have been local kids from New York or Connecticut or Pennsylvania or Ohio. When you look at that area, a lot of our greats are from those areas, right? So let's not forget that the Northeast has great football. In particular for me, being a New York State kid, New York has great football. You know, there's great teams in Rochester and Buffalo and Albany and downstate. Make sure those kids are here, because you won't have a depth issue when you get those kids from New York here, because they're not going to leave, right? They're going to be at 33% of your team that never leaves, right? Because that 33% of the team will pack the dome for you, because Rob Drummond's bringing 50 people to the game. Bruce Williams might bring another 50 to the game. Dan might bring another 50 to the game.
And I yell at y'all when you leave at the third quarter, and you know I do. So.
I ain't gonna lie. These last few years with Dino as a coach, I was leaving.
He wasn't even going.
Why? You know, I'm not going anywhere where I don't feel appreciated. You know what? Where I don't accept it. You know?
One, right?
Yeah.
We had more fun last season. We had more fun doing a tailgate with the alumni. And they said we're all sitting under the tent doing a barbecue, and we're in the west lot, and they said, they're like, we don't feel welcome up there, but we're family here. And I liked being there more than I liked being in, because these are the people that built the program. I was sitting with how many guys from the '87 undefeated team? I was sitting with Pat Davis, Blake Bednarz, Turnell Sims, you. And I'm looking around, and like somebody walking by, and they're like, oh, did you interview that guy yet? That was a safety that did da-da-da-da-da. Oh, did you interview that guy yet? That guy used to blow us up in practice. You thought that was a good wide receiver? That DB used to kill him. And I'm sitting, I'm learning more than the kids on the team were learning. You know, and now that needs to change. I need to see Bruce Williams sitting there with Dan Villari and Aronde Gadsden, and like that caliber of people. I need to see, and Aronde, we want you to stay, but I know you got a life to live. I want to see you with LaQuint Allen, sitting with him, repping with him, because we need that. We need Scott Schwades. We need Tim Green. Tim Green doesn't need to come back after all these years to be on the field for 5 minutes. Rob Conrad doesn't need to come back to wave. Marvin Graves told me he hadn't come back since he played. Joe Morris hadn't been back in God knows how many years. These guys are telling me, Dan, the last time I was here, Jerome Smith just told me, 1,000-yard back. It was him, and then all this time, and then Sean Tucker. Jerome said, I haven't felt welcome in a long time, Dan. I got to be honest with you. And that's a normal thing. So when I hear that's why I asked the question I asked. I didn't ask that question for me. I asked that question for you guys, because I knew you were sitting there, and I knew there were guys watching. And I said, there's alumni, Syracuse Orange alumni, looking at you right now. You're sitting in the room with them. What do you want to say to these people? And he said, come to practice. I need you in practice. I need to see your presence. And I want to hold them to that, because, number one, I haven't heard a coach say it in 20-some-odd years. So he's already made history. But if he lives it, oh, man. It's not going to be the city storming the castle. It's going to be the drawbridge coming down and rolling out an orange carpet to give respect, because that university doesn't exist on the hill if not for these guys.
Yeah, and I think for Fran Brown, his stories, right? He was able to tell that story about him going down and watching Syracuse play Wisconsin and Donovan Darius, and mention Pascaloni, mention DeLeon, like, he giving you specific stories that impacted his life based on Syracuse Orange. How many of the previous coaches outside of Doug Marrone can say, hey, I have a story about a situation or experience that has made an impact on me, right? Donovan Darius being from Camden, being from Jersey, made an impact. And from that, He earned respect from me because he's mentioning the history of Syracuse and why he's attracted to Syracuse. Whereas other coaches think, you know, hey, maybe it's just another stepping stone, or hey, I got to be a head coach for it. I just got that feeling from him in that sense that, you know, being able to talk about one of our greats and how he impacted you, and talk about Pasqualoni, how he impacted you, and DeLeon has impacted you, that carries a lot of weight as a former player of Syracuse to understand, all right, he has some knowledge of what this is. He has some knowledge, but now saying to us alumni, we want you here. I want to hear your stories. I want to be able to make sure I'm making you proud because this is your school, right? Like that's encouraging as a player to understand, like, he wants to hear our stories, but he also wants us to now make sure, no, we just mentioned it. No one can relate to the current kids more than your alumni because we did it. We walked it. We walked the same hallways as Sims Hall or the Archie Hall of Languages or Whitman. Like, we walked those, right? I can tell a kid, and I worked up there, you can't tell me you could be late for class when I had to walk from the women's building to Whitman in 10 minutes. I had to do it. So you can't tell me this, it can't be done because we had to do it. But who else can make that impact in your program if Rob Drummond can't sit down with a kid and hear, hey, what's going on, man? Academically, I'm struggling. All right, let's talk about it. What is it that's going, man? I'm missing the bus. I'm these classes. All right, let's talk through this with you. We can help in those ways that you may not even think of. We can make impact. It doesn't have to be wins and losses. We can impact other things, right? We can impact the alumni that you want to come back, right? We can have, and I'm fortunate to have talked to Kevin Green. Kevin Green come back, right? Kevin Green, he's an all-time one of the greats. You know, Keith Bullock. Like, some of these people that when I played, I had a chance to meet. Art Monk used to come to art practice, come sit in the training. I got to shake Art Monk's hand. And here I am, an 18-year-old, and I'm like, whoa, you know, get to work out with Dwight Freeney. Every summer he came back and worked out with us, to the point where he asked me to take him into the inner city of Syracuse and help him find a way to get white t-shirts. Like, that impacted my life. So for an alumni to come back under Fran Brown and he wants us back just means, like, you know, it's important to us, but we appreciate it, right? I have an appreciation for him wanting us back. And I'll give Dino credit. He did that at the end of his tenure, trying to get some of us to come back. But when you burn the bridge up front, we got to build a new one, and he tried to build it, and I give him credit for that. But Fran saying, hey, this is a two-way street already open for you guys. So
what he said, I want you to practice. You can come to practice. But if you don't come to practice, and he says, shut up, you know, don't say nothing. And I can respect that because y'all want to go to practice and you want to be a part of that. But he was personal. He had personal stories. He had personal stories with George DeLeon that touched him. He called Coach P and said, can I take this job? Is it okay with you if I take this job? And he said that Coach P said...
And that's respect.
Right, and he said, he was like, Coach P was like, I got no pull. I just went back for the first time in how long? And with Dwight Freeney. But he said the fact that Coach P said to him, like, the fact that you called me, the fact that you even cared to call me, it's personal. To me, it's personal. To you, it's personal. To you, it's It's a personal thing. You can't change a culture and an environment without making it personal. There's transactional relationships, there's transactional stuff, and then there's relationship building. So many people in today's culture are transactional. People that come up to you and go, how much money can I get from you? How much notoriety can I get from you? How many people can you put me into contact with? How can you help me get better? What can you do for me? How can I be a leech and just sit on you and suck the blood out of you and then go on to the next person? That's transactional. And that's Wall Street. And that'll work for a little bit of while. It'll work for a little bit. But it's not going to work forever. And it's not going to get you to heaven. Relationship building, that is what changes the game. This is not a transactional relationship. We have bonds. That's why you're here. I asked you to come. It's a relationship. I asked you to come. It's a relationship. I got your back. Somebody wants to talk to me sideways about Bruce Williams, we're going to have a problem. Somebody wants to tell me something about Drum. Tell me what about Drum? It's like, I know about Drum. You don't know about him if you think anything sideways. So to me, relationships versus transactions. Treating people like an ATM or treating people like a couch where you could sit and feel safe and talk to them. That's where we have to get to as a society And if Fran understands that it's about the city and the alumni and the 6-hour radius and building this whole thing back, you know what? It's a lot easier to ask money from people that you let back in the door. It's a lot harder to ask your Aunt Claire for $50 when she knows you only call her once a year for money. She don't call her on her birthday. You don't call her on Mother's Day. You never visit her. You don't know anything about her life. You haven't seen her in 20 years, but she knows every November 15th you want $50. Guess what, Aunt Claire? Cut the phone off. Change your phone number. But if you're going and visiting Aunt Claire, you're going to get so much more than $50. You're going to get a relationship that will eventually change your life. And the craziest thing in the world is to not involve the people. You're selling toothpaste, but you're not talking to the people that use the toothpaste to brighten their teeth. It's a crazy thing to me. Fran said he's not going to do it. Made me happy, but now I want to see it.
Just got to hold him to his word, you know. And that's one thing I always do with people. You know, I don't sit here and hold grudges. I don't sit here and belittle anybody for the actions they do or the things they do. You know, I hold people accountable for their words and what it is they do. If you don't do it, I move on to the next, and move on to the next, and move on to the next. Eventually, I'm going to run into that person that holds on to their word. The first thing I'm going to do is, like, you know, and I was telling somebody this earlier today. You know what? I'm giving him time to settle down. I'm giving him time to go through the gauntlet of basically meeting with all the university people. Now, as someone homegrown, born and raised in this city, grew up on the south side like Bruce did also, you know, on the 2206 South State Street where Grandma used to live, I was always down there because my mother was young. My mother had me when she was 14, so when she was going to school, my grandma watched me. But anyway, I told them, you meet the university people. You meet the people on the hill. I'm going to take you down that hill now and introduce you to people in the community. You know, the people out here in Baldwinsville, the people out there in Jamesville, the people in the inner city Syracuse, these are the real people, the nuts and bolts of the city of Syracuse. These are the people that the university people can't introduce you to. You know, but you don't know, a lot of people on the board of staff at Syracuse University, they don't even live here. They live in D.C., they live in Connecticut, they live in Jersey. They fly in for 2 or 3 days and fly back out. But you didn't know that. I know it. So I want them to meet the real nuts and bolts of Syracuse, the real people in there, the ones that actually work hard, make their hard-earned money in this city, go up there and buy tickets to go watch players play. But what they want to do, they want to see people like me. They want to see people like Bruce. They want to see our local kids because I tell you right now, a local kid is going to give you 150% in practice, 200 in the game, every single time. A local kid is not going to bounce when something's going bad with some NIL deal because he's got a family of friends, you know, sitting here that are going to sit here and support him. A homegrown kid's going to stay where the support is at. And that's what they need to understand. So we have a pipeline of kids coming up that are very, very talented. If you're going to went to some of these youth games I saw, I mean, look at CBA, state champs. Now, state champs. You can't tell me there's D1 athletes on that team that could go to Syracuse right now and prosper. I can.
Over 40 schools. Over 40 schools came to visit CBA, so they think that there's talent here. So, I mean, the school that can ride a tricycle to CBA, there's people coming in from 10 hours away.
I was going to say, we walk past Syracuse University to get to CBA.
Yeah. I mean, I'm going to CBA. I mean, that's my alma mater. You know, that's nothing to do that, to take a walk down there to the Ensley Center. So if Coastal Carolina's coming 10 and a half hours, you can make it.
And the key here is, though, even though we say that there's got to be a mutual want for it, right? Yeah. We can talk about all the local kids wanting to stay home, but if the love ain't coming from the other end, then local kids aren't going to stay home, right? And you got to if we want to be here, you got to want us there, right? So I think it's got to be a mutual way, and I hope that he's able to build that with our community to make sure our kids feel like they're welcome out there, because there's a disconnect, right? There was a disconnect all my life because, like you said, that's the place on the hill. That's how people from the inner city see Syracuse University, as that place on the hill. It's not connected to the inner city. And I think from that standpoint, and I hope Coach Fran Brown can do that, is connect the city by understanding the magnitude of what our kids can do for you, right? And that's the key, but it's got to be a mutual respect level, I think, out of this whole process. And, you know, hey, I hate to say it, but I'm going to say it because it's known, right? We do have Division I kids over at CBA. We have 5, with potentially about 4 or 5 more coming, you know, that's going to grow into it. And you know, but at the same time, if you don't love us, we got to move on and love the ones that love us too, right? So hopefully Coach Fran Brown does that for us.
And I've said it before, kids that grow up in Syracuse, Central, and upstate New York, what do they wear?
Shirt.
They wear this. They wear the orange S. They grew up with it. They wanted it for Christmas. They just wanted a helmet. They wanted a hat. They wanted a sweatshirt. They want to go to the game. When my dad brought me to the game as a kid, oh my gosh, like Christmas. My dad's like, we're going to the Dome today. And I was like, what? We're going to the Dome, Dad? Mom coming? Yeah, she's coming. And I still remember I got one of those puppets at one of the basketball games that you put your hand in and make it like punch and stuff like that. I remember getting the old Dome dog. When I got to do that, that meant the world to me. Flip side of that, take a kid like me, grew up here. When I was dreaming as a kid, I'm 5'8". I can shoot. I got recruited D3.
You ain't hardly no 5'8". You 5'7".
I'm 5'8", man. I love you to pieces, but I'm 5'8". So, yeah, I'll put my stilts on for you. But I got recruited D3. But as a kid growing up, when I was little and all the way through, Syracuse. Where you want to go? Syracuse. If I could play anywhere, where'd you play? Syracuse. If Division I asked you, Syracuse. There was no question. There's no question. So these kids love you. They already breathe you. You make them not like you. You build that hate. You build that animosity. Because the parents don't want to wear Rutgers and Indiana and Wisconsin, Coastal Carolina. They don't want to. They want to wear Syracuse, right? But you change that. And when you don't recruit those kids that all these great institutions are recruiting, they're going to take their jersey that they wanted their whole life, and they're going to bring it to Goodwill. They're going to give it to their cousin. I don't need this anymore. They're not going to come back here and build a family. They're not going to live here. They're not going to coach here. They're not going to build their business here. What Syracuse doesn't understand is when you don't love these kids, they already loved you. That love, if it only comes one way, relationships can't work on one-way love. And that love is there from birth. We teach our kids, you love Syracuse, you go to the Dome, you support the orange and blue. My grandmother at 100 years old, you turn a basketball game on, she like this the whole time. She's like, why Jim Boeheim picking his nose still? Like, she was always in it. She could tell, dementia, I could ask her about Ernie Davis, she remembered Ernie Davis. She remembered Dave Bing. She remembered there's a guy next door who used to play for Syracuse. She knew who he was. They love this city. They love this team. They want to play for this team. If you take that away from them, when all these other schools are showing them love, you're building generational hate, and they're not going to come back. So you want to know why these kids are angry? It's because they grew up like me. I'm 38 years old. I got a Q sweatshirt when I was 1. There's a picture of me at 1 year old with a Syracuse sweatshirt on. 38 years later, I got a Syracuse sweatshirt on. Let's take care of the kids in this city, and let's make sure they wear the right color.
And I agree 100%. And not just this city, right? There's only one Power 5 school in New York State for football.
Yeah.
And that's Syracuse. So the same kid on the south side of Syracuse is the same kid on the south side of Rochester, the south side of Buffalo, wearing that orange, because that's the school. That's the state school. And that's what we all grow up with. Parents travel to Syracuse to get their kid to experience the Dome. And Rob can agree on this, and I want to see if Rob would agree. When you played and you left the field, going into the tunnel to the locker room, all those little kids hanging their hands out there for what? I want the glove. I want the wristband. I want that. And those kids go to sleep wearing that stuff. Those kids go to bed wearing that wristband Rob Drummond wore in the game against Boston College or the game against Nebraska or whatever it is. And that's the type of impact this football program has on our city that I think Fran is going to look at it and notice, right? Because he's coming from a rich traditional school like Georgia. But understand, you need local kids to help that bridge, right? I'm just going to keep stressing that because, again, I was once one of those. Rob was once one of those, and we made impact in that way. And it didn't always equate to wins and losses, but that kid one day grows up, like you said, and goes, I want to play at Syracuse. Rob did it, I can do it. Bruce did it, I can do it.
If I got your glove, I wouldn't just wear it to bed. If I got your cleats, I wouldn't just wear them around the house. I would say one day someone's going to wear my gloves and my cleats when I play for Syracuse.
Yep. And that's the respect in the city. I mean, I'm not so busy whenever in my life especially in Syracuse. When somebody asks me for an autograph, I sign it. I mean, if you respect me enough in the city I love to ask me for an autograph, I can take the time out to give you an autograph. You know, I remember once. I mean, I was actually in college at the time to make a point of what Bruce said, and all these little kids. Coach Mack let everybody come in to watch our practice. You know, because he was a family-oriented coach, and these little kids were running around playing football and everything. And, you know, and I remember that I used to do it as a kid also. And I would get the ball, and you would always emulate who I saw on television, you know, because I wanted to be him. And for me, it was like, you know, oh, Tony Dorsett, I'm Tony Dorsett, running the ball. And I heard these little kids playing. And I heard the kid get a ball, and he was like, Rob Drummond. And my teammates just looked at me, and I was like, bro, that's respect. I was like, wow, a kid's emulating me. And this is a Syracuse kid. Like knowing that I influenced him enough to where he wanted to be like me. So that's a role model thing that me and Bruce have. And that's a love, that's a passion we have for doing. We understand what it takes to go from that little kid, to go to being that college kid, to go to that next level, now out into the business world. But we're back to try and help as much as we can. And like you said, I'm glad he let that bridge down for the whole community to come in, not just us, because this is way bigger than us.
Oh, yeah. So, final note here, wake-up call with Dan Tortora, with Bruce Williams, Rob Drummond, talking about Syracuse football's future. We play rapid fire on the show, so we're going to have some fun with it. Could be football related, could be anything related, could be music, movies, whatever we want. But I always love seeing what we come up with. Rob, you get to ask me the first question. We're going to go down the line like this, and we're going to come back. What you got for me?
Let me see. No, this is not going to be football related. I'm going to go, because I watched a clip of it. I know you're a Marvel fan and like movies and everything like that, but so what do you think about that new Godzilla King Kong movie coming out next year?
Oh, Godzilla King Kong. You know what? On Apple TV Plus, they have a new show called Monarch, and it's about hiding all these beasts, right? All of these champions or whatever you want to call them, like Godzilla. Really cool show. So I'm more into Godzilla now, and I also got to go to Superpowered Pop, my entertainment show. We covered New York Comic Con. So we go down there, and I was down there in October, and I got to see the Monarch Legacy of Monsters premiere before anybody got to see it. And the really cool thing that we got from there is that in the show, they have, you know how like you have like evacuation areas and you have like places to go if there's like a tornado and a shelter and all that. They have a Godzilla. They put it like they have signs that have Godzilla on it, and it has an arrow, like a Godzilla like protection area. And I thought that was cool. And then we got stickers of it to bring home. So I'm more of a fan now, and I think, you know, they're cool movies, but as things get bigger and better, like Pacific Rim, I saw that movie, and it kind of had like they're fighting monsters like Godzilla, and human beings are in these like big suits. And I saw it in IMAX. It's the first time I went to the IMAX at Destiny USA. And I thought to myself, the whole time I'm watching it, I'm like, this movie is great, like this. But I went home and I watched it. It doesn't matter how big my TV was. I'm like, this movie sucks. So I'll tell you, I'll be watching Godzilla and Kong. I'll be watching that, but I'll be watching it in IMAX with those massive sounds, thinking that it's running me. I'm gonna be like that like the whole time. Because I'm a movie guy. I want to make movies at some point in my life. I will. And there's certain movies you have to be in it.
I done made some movies, but I can't talk about. No, I'm playing.
What did you say? Oh, yeah. You know what? I just want the record to state. I didn't say nothing about my exes, nothing about relationships. You're talking nasty over here.
I'm so proud of you with that. I mean,
hey, listen.
Okay,
but you know, you should be proud of the fact that I created comedy out of crazy.
We got a little show left, so let's go on.
Hey, listen.
Let's go.
Rob, you can't say that it's not funny what I've come up with. I took tragedy and made it funny. Isn't that how we're supposed to take life?
I agree. Let's go.
Bruce, what videos you make? No, I'm kidding.
Ones of my daughters dancing and things of that nature.
That's what I was talking about. My son's recital, their basketball game.
I made a video. We recorded my son jumping off the couch trying to be Spider-Man the other day. So
okay, that's my real question. My real question is, you know, I'm going to stay with the superhero stuff. So you're going to be a superhero. What superhero are you going to be, and who's going to be the villain in the movie? So you could jump into any world. Who are you going to be, and who are you going to fight?
Okay, well, I would tell you, I'm a superhero freak. I watch a lot of the superhero movies. I go by myself generally. I don't even like to take my wife with me.
So do I.
'Cause I don't want to. What's going on? Or who's the like? It's too much.
Just said what I was thinking.
You
I
need
go
to
by
back-
myself.
Right. You need to go back and watch the other
Yeah.
shows. So
This
for me,
is what I do. I do this, and I don't mean to interrupt you. If I'm on a date and a girl's talking to me, she got 2 chances. She'll be like, the movie starts. She'll be like, what this movie about? I was like, you saw what the title is. And then we've seen it for the first time. It's opening night. And she's like, is he going to die? I don't know. I mean, I'm watching it with you. I'm at a point now that if you say more than 2 or 3 things to me in a movie, I'm going to get up and go sit somewhere else. I'll sit on the floor.
what I'm doing now is what I do in the movie theater by myself. I'm in there like this. I don't want nobody asking me any questions. I put my hat on, put my hood on. I do like this, and I'm just watching the movie. I don't want anybody to interrupt me, and I do this when my wife's around too. So, for me, but I think for me, I would be a superhero. I'm a big Tony Stark's guy. I'm a big guy, underdog, who really isn't a superhero like a Batman, Iron Man type that doesn't have natural strength like Superman, like Batman, who's kind of savvy and understands how to execute it. And for me, I wanna go against like Doctor Doom, like people who here's this evil genius that can do things on his own and can manipulate. So for me, that's like, if I could, I would love to see like be Batman and go against somebody like Doctor Doom, because
Isn't that Peter Von Doom?
yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
Victor Von Doom. Yeah.
Victor, excuse me,
Victor. So that would be me.
I love that answer, and I pretend like I don't speak English when I go to the movies and somebody's talking to me. I'll pretend like they're with somebody else. If there's a guy and a girl and me, and she's talking to me, I'll pretend like, I'll be like, I don't know why this girl's asking me questions. She's with it. I just turn this way. I need to be like focused. You can't ask me questions and about the game too. Like I'll help. Like if you never watch football, I'll walk you through it. But if I'm watching a movie, Bruce, I'm gonna do what you do, because I put it on figuratively, but I'm gonna get the hoodie up. I'll be like this for Godzilla and Kong.
I just act like I don't relate that, because I've had thousands of people come up to me and be like, "You look familiar." I don't know what to tell you. I don't know. I've seen you somewhere before, man. Look,
and I like to go to like the 11 a.m. shows when nobody going. Like I'm gonna go to the show where nobody's at. Like I'm gonna go to this 10 o'clock in the morning show because I know everybody's still asleep. So I'm going to watch it.
Well, he knows because he watched it too. I'm like, I know on Tuesdays it's $5. I got a membership. I'm there at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and I'm in the little theater. I'm like, show me that movie in the tiny theater. I've been there before where I take a picture and I was like, I must got it like that. I rented the theater out. I love going. Oh my gosh. They're like, you want to go Friday night? Hell no. Open, and the thing is, if you talk during the movie, I'm not a person who's going to be like yelling at a stranger or anything like that. I have an issue though when somebody is on their phone or they will not stop talking in the middle of a movie. That's just if you can't sit for 2 hours and just be quiet, stay home.
That's disrespect.
And I paid for this, right? So, Bruce, you get to ask Rob a question now.
Yep. Well, since I got to ask my alum brother here, if you could pick one place in Syracuse where you would want Fran to visit first from the city of Syracuse, or organization, doesn't have to be a particular place, where would you tell him he should visit?
Inner city of Syracuse. You know what? Because I preach it all the time. I feel that the youth and the development of the youth is what's important in the city of Syracuse right now. Because I mean, like you said earlier, once they get to college, you already have to be that elite athlete. You already have to be that developed athlete once you get to college. So it's our job, because we know how it works, to develop these athletes in high school, but even down at the youth levels. So I would love to have a school. I would love to have an organization. The Dunbar Center, the Southwest Center, which unfortunately they're going through some things, may open back up. The Boys and Girls Clubs, the Y, someplace to bring all the youth no matter what sport it is, because it's just not about inspiring, just the football players. It's about inspiring all the young athletes, whether it be the cheerleaders, the basketball players, the volleyball, whatever it may be. Have them all sit there and come down there and have them see that he's someone who's not just someone who sits up on the hill and says nothing to him, but he comes down and inspires them to be able to go out there with us around him, because remember, he wants us involved also. So I tell these kids all the time, it's one thing to look at the television screen and be like, wow, that's cool to watch that player right there, blah, blah, blah. But once you turn that TV off, you never see him again until the next time you turn that TV on. I told a group of kids the other day, speaking to them, it's like, you know what, you can't turn me off. It's like, if you need me, I'm here. It's like a matter of fact, when I went down to speak to the young kids, the fifth graders and the boy, the Building Men program, I told them, it's like, I'll be back here next week. So you're not just seeing me for the first time. This is not one and done. You can't turn the TV off. I'll be back again to show you I mean what I say. Those children need to see that this coach means what he says, and he sounds like a stand-up guy like that. So if I had the opportunity, which I will have the opportunity, like I told you, to take him, you got those on the hill that are going to tell you one thing and show you one part of the university in the hill, but then you got us, the ones, me and you, you got Scott Swades, Blake Bednarz, but Blake Bednarz is not from Syracuse, but guys who live in the city who want to show you what it's like to really be a part of the city. And that's what I want to show him. What is to be a part of the actual city? The barbershops I grew up with, the community centers I went to, the grocery stores I went to. These are the community people, who you really need to impact. You don't have to impact places like Manlius, like Baldwinsville, like Liverpool, because those people are doing okay. It's the people down there like the Camden, New Jersey you come from that are struggling, that really need to hear your word, that really need to hear your voice, that really need to get out there, because other communities like this, you're going to be able to go to the Dome. But these kids are right there, and as you said before, talking earlier, like, people paid you in pennies and coins. I've had the same thing happen. So it's about doing the right thing and giving the people who are less disadvantaged the opportunity to believe that one day they can make it out.
I love it.
That's real. That's real.
I know it's your heart.
But it's like, not to cut you off, but it's like he said, another thing that made me respect that man so much more is when he got up there and he had a book of notes. And he said the same thing that I think all the time. I don't write down or think of nothing I'm going to say, because I say it from the heart. I hear a topic, and then I equate it to my city, and I say my city, not as a thing of content for any other city or things of that nature. I say my city because this is where I was born. This is where I was raised. I left to go play a sport in my job, and I came back, and this is where I'll be buried. I'm fortunate enough to be able to go up to my grandma's grave, my father's grave, one of my best friend's grave, my cousin's grave, and just tell them hello. I went up the other day and I told them, it's like, you know what? We finally got a coach that gets it. So I'm gonna hold him accountable and stay on his ass to be like, you know what? You promised us something, young man. Because I can say young man because he's 41, I'm 56. You promised us something. Hold your promise. Hold true to what I believe in you. Lead by example. So that's why I want to bring him to the real people.
Yeah, and that's what we need. And that's the thing. You don't write it down if it comes from your heart. That's what Jerome Smith said to me. We were doing a show one time. He looked at me while I was talking. He goes, I got to ask you something. And we were live, and I was like, what's up? He's like, you don't have a notebook. I was like, yeah. He said, why? He said, I love it, but why? I said, because I do this crazy thing called listen. And I just hear you. And I know what I want to talk about, but I let the conversation, I don't have it. You can come to my studio any day of the week. I don't have a notebook. I'm just talking. When you guys are on there and we're picture in picture, I'm just talking. I'm listening to you, and I'm going wherever we go. You want to talk about your mom? We're going to talk about your mom. You want to talk about something that happened when you were 5 years old? We're going to talk about something that happened when you were 5 years old. You got to just listen. That's the problem. They think a lot of people, broadcasters, we just want to hear ourselves talk. I don't make a career if I don't listen. I don't build relationships if I don't hear you. What's your question for Bruce?
Ooh, you gave me that question, so let me think for a second. I talked about the development of the youth earlier, but as far as you being able to talk to Fran, and being a part, and fortunate enough to be actually up at Syracuse dealing with the academics, the portion of these athletes. What is it you would tell him to try and inspire, the city of Syracuse, the athletes, as far as the academia area, for the city, because I know it's a lot different now than than back when we were in there.
So I would definitely tell him when it comes to our education system that the biggest need is in these middle schools, right? And not just from an education standpoint, but the life of crime, right? We're starting to see now these middle school kids get involved with gun violence and things like that, that a guy like Fran Brown with the platform he has to go down and talk to those kids at the middle school level to encourage them to stay in school, and make it cool again to be a student athlete, right? Like I think a lot of these kids are missing out on that student part because they think they got to go to the streets or they got to do these things. And like you mentioned, unfortunately, with your father killed by a senseless killing of a young kid, right? Like, can we make an impact in this part of our community that is struggling because they don't have parents at home? Like, go in and preach the story you gave us. These kids at the middle school age need to hear that story. Hear where you come from and where you are, how you got there. Like, that will encourage the education. That will encourage staying off the streets. That will encourage these kids to pick the basketball back up, right? Encourage the kids to play football, play sports, get involved and find other ways to take that anger and aggression out, right? Like, that was my thing growing up. My brothers walked me to Kurt Park at 8 o'clock in the morning to help me release the anger I got because we had to eat peanut butter sandwiches or bread and butter the night before because that's all we had in our house to eat. And they didn't want me to resort to the anger ways of getting out my anger like they did. So they said, hey, stick this football in here. Hey, what we're going to do is we're going to bring you down. And I'm 9 years old playing toss-up tackle with the 14, 15-year-olds. Hey, they're going to hit you and they'll get it out of you. Like, you want to be good as you want? Try to break these tackles when there's 30 of us playing toss-up. And you got to go from this light pole to that light pole without getting tackled. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's the thing that I think our youth, and not just in the city, and all of these, middle schools around here, get you and your team to be involved in these communities and these schools because, like I told you, Kevin Johnson was around me when I was growing up. Like, I remember that. Like, that's the name I remember because he would pass me the basketball and he would sit and talk to me. Like, that's the biggest thing I would want Fran to do is get back involved with our education system in the inner city of Syracuse, the city school districts and things like that. Get involved at the middle school level because as you know, that's where the fall off. These kids aren't going to high school and graduating anymore. They're stopping in middle school because they think I gotta go make money, I gotta do these things. But encourage these kids because your platform is bigger than a lot of ours now.
Appreciate that. Bruce, you get to ask me, and then I'll ask Rob. What do you got for me, Bruce?
So I'm going to media here for you. All right. If you got to interview one person to bring me your show, that one person, don't matter who, what, when, why, how, it can be 200 years ago. Why that person outside, I'm gonna make one disclaimer, right? Outside of the Lord, right? Because everybody know he's first in all of ours, right? But who's that one person that's walked that you have knowledge of that you would want to come bring me your show and why?
I got a couple. Abraham Lincoln, because I would want to know, in a world we live in today where if one person says they don't like what you're wearing or what you're doing or how you talk or anything about you, some people stop. Well, if somebody doesn't, everybody's got to like me for it. Half the country didn't like him. And I want to know when he stood at that window and it was raining and he's looking outside and he's thinking, did I do the right thing? I want to know why he continued. I want to know what God said to him at that window. I want to know what kept him going. Robin Williams. Because Robin Williams, to me, nice. Not tonight. Robin Williams, to me, is crazy. But Robin Williams, for me, I would say, gotta be Robin, and because of the fact that when I was 4 years old, I watched him do comedy, and And watching him do comedy and having that connection to him, when he died, it felt like my uncle passed away. And I don't know, there's just everything that he did. I'd want to sit with him. I'd want to try and make him laugh. 24 hours give me a chance to make him laugh. And I feel like there was so much more to him, and people should watch his story because they really don't understand like what happened in his life and what he went through that he couldn't control. So I would want to spend more time with Robin. I would say that for sure. All right, Rob. Single greatest meal that you've ever had that you could taste still to this day, you could go back to it.
Single greatest meal. Ooh.
Single greatest meal, yeah.
Well, I can tell you his grandmother made it probably. I can tell you that much.
I mean, I don't think there's a single greatest meal that I've ever had because I'm not a real big foodie. I mean, I like food, but I eat food to live. I don't eat food for the taste. You know, I mean, but that might sound crazy because I love to cook. But I love to cook because I've been to so many cities before, and I love to create with my hand. So I'll go and I'll see a meal. I mean, I've been to New Orleans, I've been to Memphis, you know, I mean, out to California, to Vancouver. So I know how to cook a lot of meals, you know, but I try and put my own flavor on it because I love to create. But, I mean, my grandma's passed away. She passed away in 1991. And I remember always coming back and just always asking her. I could sit there and eat like 3, 4, or 5, or, you know, her sweet potato pies. You know, every single day she would make them. You know, I mean, she would usually make them, you know, just on Thanksgiving. But it got to the point where, you know, we as kids, you know, we ate them so much, you know, because we loved. I mean, I don't know what it is about women from the South, but they can cook, they can bake, and make all this food. And that's the one thing. I mean, I wish. I mean, God rest her soul. She's gone now. I wish she had sweet potato pie. You know.
So with that being said, Grandma's sweet potato pie. Appreciate that. Perfect way to end it. Shout out to Grandma. So for Rob Drummond, for Bruce Williams, for myself, Dan Tortora, and for Syracuse's future here in the community, beyond football, to all you kids, you got a home on wake-up call. You got 2 people that are willing to teach you and help you. We love you, Central and Upstate New York. To all the adults out there, whatever your age is, we are a community that should work together, love each other, appreciate our differences, and find a way to find those similarities and to find a place that creates a community that's positive for everybody. Nobody should go to sleep hungry, and nobody should go to sleep without love. God loves you. Have a great day. God bless. No stress. Do your best, as we always say on Wake Up Call. From Pizza Man on 50 Oswego Street. We'll see you Monday through Friday from 9 to 11 a.m. from these same channels. Bruce, thank you, sir. Drum, God bless y'all. Be good.